Yep, it's that time of the year again. Well, I should probably turn to something more seasonally appropriate. Whoop. Maybe a little on the nose. Whoop. Whee! Ah, much better. This will get me in the mood for my Golden Deer run. Can't wait to see what they do with the plot of that path.
What, you're not gonna ask how I got here?
Nope. What was that?
Huh? Oh no, I wasn't cursing you out for being an asshole during the holidays. I just got pity broken in this game again.
Fire Emblem! Heroes!
You play Heroes?
Hey, at the end of the day, I'm still your doppelganger, you know.
Fair enough. Who'd you get broken by?
Well, I wanted Christmas Sothis.
Uh-huh.
But instead I got Nagi.
Ooh, that's rough, buddy. But there are other units you can build.
Like who?
You know you get a free green armor unit from the Tempest Trials linked to this banner, right?
What am I supposed to do with the free unit? Those can't be any good.
On the contraire, DP.
Please don't call me that.
For there are plenty of useful free units that work just as well as the premium pay-to-win units.
Okay, but I don't want them.
Okay, listen. Just because you want something doesn't mean you'll always get it. No matter how much you cry, or beg, or plead for something, it doesn't mean you'll get it. And you should be happy with what you have because it can be worse.
I am an ethereal spirit that inhabits a plush toy. How could it get worse than this?
You want to find out, bitch?
Tell me all about those F2P units.
Close enough. Anyways, viewer, that's what I'll discuss today, so get cozy if it's chilly, or comfy if it's warm, as I will talk about the top 10 F2P units in FE. I've made some graphics that will go into some more depth than what I'll actually say, as what I'm talking about will address breadth, while my images will give you more of the depth of these units' potential. Also, no CYL units will be on this list. Neither will any from Find and Vote, meaning no Legendary Azura. I only want to cover units everyone has access to with no opportunity cost. So with all that out of the way, dear viewer, let's get started.
Who are you talking to?
Don't ask questions or I'll feed you to the wolves.
I'll dye my fangs red.
Are those the wolves?
Yes, those were the wolves. Starting off this list, the first unit we will talk about is Sherina. This pick might confuse some people, as will the information on screen, but I wanted to take Legacy into account as well. Otherwise, the top 10 would just be the 10 most recent armor units, and I feel that there's a lot of heroes, Sherina being one of them, a disservice, so I hope you understand. During FE's launch, it is important to remember that a lot of the features we take for granted now were not in the game. There was no skill inheritance, no weapon refines, and feathers were a very limited resource, so choosing which of your units to 5-star first was a much harder decision. I remember deciding to make Sherina my first 5-star, mostly despite a certain flying space carrot by saying that I had a better version of his waifu than he did, but he kinda didn't care because... Wait, are they announcing, like, FE, like, switch through this stuff?
She's so attractive.
No, these are Asker units, what the hell?
Yeah. Who is she? I need her.
Backstory aside, that was a very good investment in base FE, as Sherina was a tier 2 unit at launch. She offers 32-32 offenses, which are boosted to 32-35 with her speed plus 3 in her A slot. This makes it impossible for any top tier unit to double her and deal meaningful damage, as Sherina even has good bulk. 43 HP coupled with her deceptively high 29 base defense makes her really good in melee and for fighting threats like, well, Takumi. In fact, Sherina was great support for the only counter to Takumi at the time. Rally Attack gave a crucial +4 to any unit trying to take out Takumi, and Fortify Defense 3's +4 defense reduced damage by 8 in combat because said counter, Male Robin, was very slow. However, the +4 defense put Robin at 30 defense, giving him a 15 damage bonfire special that, when paired with his Raven Tome, decimated Takumi in the next player phase. While her support was useful though, Sherina was a great combat unit as well, with her Fensile Leer Lance having a built-in threat and attack too, further adding to her overall bulk. Sherina was an incredibly potent combat unit, and her high speed netted her many doubles, Regardless of what period of Fae you're in, Sherina is always a worthwhile unit to invest in. Next, we have our first dual entry on this list, as I want to talk about Winter Cecilia and Kranya, two colorless dagger units who are fantastic in ether raids. Winter Cecilia has alluring base stats with great bulk, as her 41 HP, 30 defense, and whopping 36 res make her a tough unit to take out. Then there's Fez's newest villainous waifu, Kranya, who, while not as tanky, takes the award for being the fastest free-to-play unit, as her 39 base speed is unmatched by any of the other F2P units, and is only 3 points shy of the overall cap. For those wondering what the asterisk next to Kranya's res is, it's to show that the bonus stats from her preferred weapon are present here. Speaking of weapons, Cecilia has a few different options. For AR defense, definitely go with the Cleaner, as it's a reverse blade tome, meaning it powers up the more buffs your opponent has, so it's very annoying to deal with. However, for other content, Barb Shuriken is the way to go, as I wouldn't recommend Lethal Carrot unless you have one too many Spring Kagros, as a Woe Dagger is inevitable at this point. Defender Fine is definitely the best for mixed bulk, so it's the one that I recommend. As for Kranya, you know what the knife does even if you can't pronounce it. Atame activates when the opponent is not at full HP, which allows Kranya to attack first, essentially giving her Vantage 4 or Vantage 3.9, and she also gets attack and speed plus 5 when this condition is met. To make the most of these lovely ladies, absolutely use Close Counter. This lets Cecilia tank, while Kranya can solo entire maps. Both make good use of Special Spiral, however, Cecilia is an armor unit, so she gets access to the fighter line of skills, of which Special Fighter is best, as she can deal massive damage and get some good healing with a charge of Ether, thanks to a quick riposte seal. However, Bold, Vengeful, and even Wary Fighter all have their uses, just don't bother with the new Daring Fighter, as the only daring thing about this teacher should be her attire. Kranya, while not armored, is perfectly content running CC Special Spiral, and Savage Blow for her C slot, so the next wave of enemies she faces are ready for the special of your choosing, of which I prefer Glimmer. Regardless of which unit you build, you are guaranteed a powerful female that will certainly be fatal. Next, we have the first man on this list with Brave Ike. Now, before anyone asks, I know I said I won't be considering CYL units, which I am not, as I'm considering the Brave Ike we got from the Heroes Path quest, which anyone can do, and should do, because this man is worth it. Now, I know Brave Ike can get IVs, which is why I've only put his base neutral stats on screen, since his weapon description is lengthy, and I'll do this for subsequent units who can receive boons and banes. When it comes to Brave Ike, we are talking about Irvin and its crazy stupid good refine. Irvin, at base, reduces Ike's special cooldown by 1 and reduces damage taken from consecutive attacks by 80%. In English, any immediate double caused by either a brave weapon or desperation has the second hit onwards do only 20% the damage they would normally do. Gee, I wonder which Reinhardt they were trying to hard counter with this build, especially since Ike's unique B skill, Beorg's Blessing, a clever reference to the titular item in Path of Radiance, negates buffs on cavalry and flying enemies, to which I ask, which of the Blue Tome cavalry were they trying to stop? Must have been Olwen. Clearly her base 26 attack was too powerful for this meta. Now at launch, Brave Ike definitely had a solid base kit, but the real treat was Steady Breath. This unique skill gives its user plus 4 defense on enemy phase, while also reducing the special cooldown counter each time the user is hit by 1, allowing for fast special charges. Now, this is a good set, but it's not why Brave Ike is so good. Brave Ike's Refine, alongside this new set, is how Brave Ike became tier 1, because he got not just 1, but 2 added effects in his Refine. The first reduces the damage from the first hit of combat by 40%. Pretty nice. However, the second effect gives his opponents a Brave effect, meaning he takes 60% damage, then 20% damage from all enemies that double him afterwards, and considering he's pretty slow, he's going to be taking a lot of hits. Now, combo this with Brave Lucina's Refine that gives Brave Ike the cooldown effect of his breath skill if she's within 2 range of him, and you have a unit that can proc Ether with distant counter in 1 round of combat. This build is one of the most potent things in the game, and the only reason I have it lower on this list is because it requires a lot of investment to pull off. But when you pull it off, Man, is it satisfying. We're moving up in the world now because we go from one manly man to a duo entry of men, which is not a duo hero because Intelligent Systems refuses to give them to us for free. Now we're going to talk about Xander and Camus. And before anyone tries correcting me on that pronunciation, tell me how you pronounce this character's name then. Xander and Camus are both mounted units with distant counter weapons, and at the time they came out, this was broken. Xander challenged the then best sword unit, Ike, yeah, just regular old Ike, and Camus was the best lance cav back in the simpler days. While Xander looks weaker because of his lower speed, he's actually a very good quick riposte user who made excellent use of then premium skills like Close Defense 3 from either Sigurd or Summer Tiki, and Steady Stance 3 from Black Knight. Attack plus 3 was always a good budget option though. With Xander as the QR tank, Camus became the classic Fury Vantage user because, let's face it, even though Phoenix Master presented the distant defense option to us, no one fucking did it. Camus was a great, and his stat line made him a natural advantage sweeping with a 32-33 offensive stat line, and 37 defense was pretty good, especially with the abundance of cavalry buffs. With Gunters and Jagans being nothing but Hone and Fortify cavalry fodder respectively, who were easily accessible in the 3 and 4 star summoning pools, these units created what was the building block of Cavalry Emblem during Book 1 Fair, alongside Bravelyn and Reinhardt of course. It is because of the synergy these two units had that makes me rank them together, because once Camus came out, you'd be insane to not pair him up with Xander. The only reason I put the founders of Emblem teams lower on this list is because Intelligent Systems went out of their way to make sure a Horse Emblem was indirectly nerfed into the ground, and that was all but assured once Micaiah was finally added into the game, alongside Breath Refines for dragons. And the fighter skills. Intelligent Systems just really hated the monstrosity they created with Horse Emblem teams. From two darker figures of the Fire Emblem series, we move on to the sinister general himself, the Black Knight. Easily the best free-to-play unit when he was introduced into the game because it was this unit that showed that speedy armors were here to stay. Black Knight boasts a terrifying 34-34 offensive spread with 35 defense and a whopping 48 HP, making this unit a true terror. The low resistance might make some question the viability of giving BK here a DC weapon, but keep in mind, archers reigned supreme during Year 1 Fair, so the DC from Alondite was greatly appreciated in fighting off powerful Bravebow archers. This was further cemented with his base kit of Steady Stance and Wings of Mercy, ensuring that whenever an archer didn't finish off one of your units, the Black Knight would waltz up and ask, "Will you survive?" Which now brings me to the real source of this unit's potential, Black Luna. Black Luna, like regular Luna, was a 3-turn cooldown special that reduced the opponent's defense, but instead of reducing the stat by 50%, Black Luna reduced the opponent's defense by 80%. This made even the tankiest unit quake in fear because the more bulk a unit had, the more they feared the Black Knight. This was huge during the meta when BK was introduced because this is when dragons were beginning to take over with refines at the start of Book 2. However, BK gained access to the fighter skills at this point and cemented himself as one of the greatest free units in the game. What places BK higher up on this list is because he never fell out of meta relevance. There are Black Knight builds that give him a different weapon than Alondite to help round him out more, in which case Distant Counter could serve as the replacement. However, Steady Breath is a viable option should you keep his base weapon. The BK here has many useful builds that send shivers down a unit's spine, and that's not just because of the impending frost coming soon. Now if only people appreciated non-rhyming puns. Book 2 introduced a brand new story to Fae alongside some OCs and gave players Fjorm, Princess of Nifl. This Ice Queen made many a Fae player forget who Sherina was because...
Yo, holy babe, what the fuck? Why is she so cute? Oh, who is that?
That ain't Zacharias.
Yo, I gotta search up Rule 34 right away.
Kyle, no.
Oh, and this cold character packs some serious heat in her build. Fjorm's admittedly underwhelming stats were completely acceptable by most free-to-play players once they understood how her base kit utilized them. Having 34 base resistance makes sure that her lance, Leipter, is getting used frequently, but her special ensures that you appreciate it. Ice Mirror is a unique version of Sacred Cowl that reduced damage caused by ranged foes by 30%, which was then converted into raw damage that Fjorm would deal on counterattack so long as you weren't fighting Brave Lyn. Combo Ice Mirror with Shield Pulse 3 that further reduced the damage that Fjorm took by 5 and accelerated Ice Mirror's cooldown, making her immensely useful against mages who were rising in meta relevance at this point because of all the new tools they were getting. Fjorm became a staple unit in Phoenix Master 1's free-to-play guides, for which we're all grateful for. This is because PM1 would use Fjorm's good support in Drive Attack 2, which was a premium skill at the time. Plus 3 attack to allies in 2 range was very powerful during Book 2 Fe. There's also her, at the time, premium A-slot skill Attack Defense Bond 3, which gave her better matchups against archers, and allowed her to better tank melee range units, as her mediocre 30 base attack and defense go up to a much more respectable 35, which was a huge stat jump for the time as it didn't rely on visible buffs. DC, support, a kit that focused on survivability, Fjorm was everything that an F2P player was looking for in a unit and required no investment, hence why she's in the top 5 of this list. So despite hyping up Fjorm so much in the last segment, it's a damn shame Legendary Ike stole most of Fjorm's thunder with his arrival. I guess it would be cool since she's an ice-oriented fighter, whatever. Legendary Ike is busted is the point I'm trying to make here. He was so busted when he came out that Fair ran a poll that would give us a free unit of the community's choosing, and the competition was between Legendary Ike and Winter Tharja. Considering that Winter Tharja was the best armored unit in the game when she was added, let that show you how powerful Legendary Ike, a mere infantry unit pre-Book 3, truly was. The DC sword appears once again, but instead of Heavy Blade, Ike now came with Warding Breath, the resistance version of Steady Breath. Couple this with Radiant Ether, which is a 4-turn cooldown variant of Ether, and you had a unit that people were frothing at the mouth to get. What makes Ike a better unit than Fjorm is that Radiant Ether because it gives Ike a form of self-sustainability, something which Fjorm sorely lacked. Melee units are also more prominent in Feb because, well, there are more melee units in Fire Emblem than there are mages, so naturally, Ike would be better against these units since he has a beefy 35 base defense that rivals Fjorm's res. As for the Seal and Tactics skill, no one really cared about them, as most people replaced Seal Attack Defense 2 with Quick Riposte if they had the feathers to do so, because why wouldn't you give a tank Quick Riposte? All in all, Legendary Ike is the king of infantry free-to-play units. That is until Hilda wins some sort of popularity poll. I hope you guys are as thirsty for Flyer Emblem teams as I am, because the next 3 units on this list are all flyers. I know people will ask why I don't have more armored units on this list, and that's because while some of them are just better, none of them are as meta-defining as Winter Cecilia with her colorless status making her the best armored tank, and Black Knight having something truly unique. There are other easily summonable units like Effie and Sheena which make for better super tanks because they can have boons. With that hopefully satisfactory explanation, I would like to apologize to Air for neglecting her, however, she seems to be into that type of stuff given Book 3's ending. The Princess of Hell grants a merciful death to many of her enemies because Fe whipped out all the stops with her build as she remains a unique unit to this day. Let's start with her weapon because unlike some of the other ones the OCs in this game use, I can actually pronounce this one. Lithiaberg gives Air +3 resistance because it's a free-to-play unit's weapon from Book 3 onward, therefore it always gives +3 res, and a needlessly wordy ability. In English, if Air has over 50% of her health, she gets Swift Sparrow 2 and Null Follow-Up, which are immensely useful. They also added this 4 HP penalty on top of that whenever she gets these benefits, probably to tie into the edgy themes Book 3 was going for, implying that she was injuring herself to use this weapon. However, her somehow still unique B-slot skill, Mystic Boost 3, restores 6 HP to its user after initiating combat, while disabling adaptive damage, making Air potent against dragons, and makes her pitiful base 14 defense a lot less concerning. They proceeded to double down with Air and gave her another unique skill in her C slot, Sparkling Boost, which at the start of player phase, restores 10 HP to the unit that has taken the most damage. Air is not only good support, but she's a self-sustainable unit that can also support her allies. She also deals good damage as her Iceberg special gives her 17 extra damage when charged, when including Lithiaberg's buff. Despite her best efforts to do otherwise, Air gives her enemies a very brutal death. Transitioning from the light mythic hero, we now talk about the dark one, Aversa. Ironically enough, Aversa has become best friends with Air, and not because both came out at around a few months apart, but because Aversa benefits heavily from Air's light blessing, but more on that later. Aversa is the single greatest merge project for any devoted Aether Raids player, and that's because of her unique tome, Aversa's Night. While not the Nosferatu tome many diehard Awakening fans were expecting, you really can't complain about the results. This is a tome with 2 requirements for its activation. The first is that your opponent's current HP is 3 or more points lower than Aversa's, and that they be adjacent to one of their allies. If these conditions are met, then Aversa not only debuffs those units by reducing all of their base stats by 3, but she also inflicts the panic status onto them. At first, this effect doesn't seem that good because the conditions seem a bit strict to pull off, but when analyzing the direction the meta took, this made Aversa a premier unit for Aether Raids, with Legendary Azura coming out just a few months later, making the buffing meta even more prominent. For once, Aversa's non-min-max stat line, which in all honesty isn't even that bad, as 33-34 offenses, while not the best for a Blade Tome Flyer, do more than enough with Aversa's base 42 HP. The fact that Aversa is a free-to-play unit means she has an inflated HP stat, because that's how Fed tries to keep players from summoning for better units, since they can't make all the free ones that good like they did with Xander back in the day. But allow me to show Aversa's stats with her base HP Speed 2 A slot and an HP Speed 2 Sacred Seal equipped. This doesn't consider the potential 5 HP she could get from a summoner support, plus 2 HP from using flat HP plus 5 seals, or the extra hit point from Dragon Flowers. And while all those buffs are nice, if you use 2 Airs or now Air and Peony in Aether Raids, Aversa can get plus 10 to her already massive HP stat. I get that Air has better combat potential at base, but Aversa in my honest opinion offers better support potential than Air because of her insane debuffs, benefiting from a light blessing, and significantly easier merge potential. And yes, to the surprise of absolutely none of you, Peony is the #1 entry on this list. If it wasn't Aversa, it was going to be her. It's almost like I put her on the thumbnail for reasons aside from clickbait. I'm sure most of you know why Peony is so good, but I'll still explain because it's how YouTube pays me. Peony is the first ever free flying dancer in the game that is accessible to all players. Her stats really aren't all that important because dancers should stay away from combat, but her stats aren't that bad. Her weapon, the Flower of Joy, gives all allies in cardinal directions of Peony plus 3 to their attack and speed during combat, meaning it is a buff that will always exist and never backfire on you by getting ployed. However, if there are no ploys in play, and Peony uses her unique dance skill, Gentle Dream, she will also give plus 3 to all of the dance unit stats, giving them plus 6 attack, plus 6 speed, so long as they stay within Flower of Joy's effect range. But the real potential comes in the second effect of Gentle Dream, which gives all allies in cardinal directions of both Peony and the unit she danced for the ability to move adjacent to any ally within 2 spaces. I know it's clear in my image, but I ran out of space, okay? Essentially, what this is a ground order skill built into a dance skill that also works on flyers. She also has B dual flying, which no one cares about, but aerobatics makes her very useful on mixed emblem teams. And her C slot, while not the best, can be utilized by her best comparison, Legendary Azura, for complete and utter annihilation. And I think that last sentence explains why Peony is #1 on this list. She is a unit that is comparable to Legendary Azura in terms of utility. Need I say more? And there you go, DP. Those are 10 of the best units in the game. Whether or not you agree with me on some of the semantics in certain armored units, I think you can agree that these are definitely up there.
Stop calling me that. I guess you have a point. There really are good units you don't have to pay for. And they have great art too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mention Brunya, who's thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
Anyways, why are you here? It's Christmas. What are you doing?
I'm going to work.
You're working on Christmas Day? Why?
Because while everyone else gets to enjoy time with their family, exchange presents with loved ones, or enjoy a nice meal together with the ones they care about, God put people like me in this world. People who serve as the reminder that if you're miserable on this day, it can be worse. Because you could be working a 12-hour shift where you serve ungrateful dipshits coffee on Christmas Day.
Okay, you were right, it can get worse.
Yes, now I'm going to work.
Hey, I could, tag along because as a thanks for the information you gave me. I mean, I don't have to, but I don't have anything better to do since I have the whole, children's plush toy thing going on, and,
Oh, come on, you tsundere trinket, just follow the snow tracks I make.